The ship was small compared to the massive stations floating in the void. Ambassador stood at the window of her cabin, watching the throne of stars grow larger as they approached. It was the capital of the Galactic Council, a structure so big that entire moons could fit inside it. Lights glittered across its surface like stars trapped in metal. Ships of 100 different designs moved around it like insects around a hive. Was 52 years old. She had gray in her dark hair and lines around her eyes from years of smiling and frowning in equal measure. She had been a diplomat for 30 years, had ended wars between nations on Earth, had negotiated peace between human colonies that wanted to kill each other. The United Nations had chosen her for this mission because she was patient, because she never gave up, because she believed, truly believed, that talking was always better than fighting. Humanity had been traveling among the stars for only 80 years. They had 40 colony worlds now, spread across a small corner of the galaxy. 8 billion people on Earth, another 6 billion scattered among the colonies. They were young, they were small, and they wanted to join the galactic community. The Galactic Council had existed for millions of years. 12 species sat on it, ancient beings who had watched countless civilizations rise and fall. They controlled thousands of star systems. Trillions of beings lived under their laws. To them, humanity was a child taking its first steps. Ship docked with the station. She took a deep breath, picked up the case containing humanity's formal petition, and walked toward the airlock. The first thing she noticed was how the aliens looked at her. A group of soldiers stood at the dock, tall creatures with gray skin and 4 arms. They wore black armor and carried weapons that hummed with energy. Their eyes, dark and cold, followed her every movement. One of them made a sound that her translator rendered as laughter. "So small," the soldier said, "so soft. This is what wants to join the council." Smiled, she had dealt with worse. "I am ambassador of Earth. I am here to present humanity's petition for membership." The soldier's face twisted. It might have been a smile, it might have been disgust. "Follow." They led her through corridors that seemed designed to make her feel small. The ceilings rose impossibly high. The doors were sized for beings 3 times her height. Aliens of dozens of species passed her, and most of them stared. Some whispered to each other. A few pointed. Kept her head high and walked with steady steps. The council chamber was a vast circular room. 12 platforms floated in the air, each holding a representative of an elder species. In the center, far below them, was a single small platform for petitioners, was led to it and left alone. She looked up at the beings who would decide humanity's fate. There was the representative, a massive creature in ceremonial armor. There was a being made of living crystal that pulsed with inner light. There were there, looking like shadows given form. The glowed with soft golden light. Each species was ancient, powerful, and utterly certain of their superiority. High Arbiter of the Dominion spoke first. His voice echoed through the chamber like thunder. "You come before this council as a petitioner. Your species is young. You have existed for barely a moment in cosmic terms. What makes you think you are worthy of standing among us?" Opened her case and held up the petition. "We come in peace. We come with respect. We seek only to learn from the wisdom of elder species and to contribute what we can to the galactic community. We are young, yes, but we are eager to grow." The representative made a sound like wind chimes. "Your species has a troubling history, wars, violence. You have killed each other by the millions." "We have," admitted. "We do not hide from our past, but we have also learned from it. We have united. We have reached for the stars. We believe our future can be different from our history." The questions went on for hours. They asked about human government, human science, human culture. They asked about diseases and weapons and beliefs. Answered everything honestly, patiently, without anger even when the questions were designed to insult her. Days passed, then weeks. Was given quarters on the station, small rooms that were barely comfortable. She was summoned for more questions, more tests. They tested her intelligence, her knowledge, her reactions to stress. They put her in situations designed to make her fail, to make her angry, to make her show the violent nature they believed all humans possessed. She passed every test. She remained calm. She smiled through insults and laughed at tricks. When they tried to provoke her, she simply asked how she could help them understand humanity better. But in the shadows, something darker was happening. High Arbiter had studied humanity carefully. He had read their history, watched their wars, analyzed their pattern of survival. He saw something that worried him deeply. Humans were adaptable. They learned fast. They never stayed beaten. Every time they fell, they rose again stronger. The Dominion had ruled through strength for 100,000 years, had destroyed species that threatened their power before. He looked at humanity and saw a threat that would only grow with time. Better to deal with them now, he decided, while they were still weak. He arranged for evidence to be planted in quarters. Fake data files that suggested she was a spy, that humanity's peace offer was a trick, that they were planning to steal Council technology. The evidence was crude, but it would be enough. The Council rarely questioned was arrested in the middle of the night. She was dragged from her bed by soldiers, still wearing her sleeping clothes. They did not tell her what she was charged with. They did not let her speak to Earth. They threw her in a cell and left her in darkness. The trial, if it could be called that, lasted 6 minutes. Stood before the Council, her face bruised from rough handling, her voice steady despite everything. "I am innocent," she said. "I ask only for a fair investigation. Let me prove that this evidence is false." Looked down at her and she saw the truth in his eyes. He knew she was innocent. He did not care. "The evidence is clear. You are guilty of espionage against the Galactic Council. The sentence is death." His last transmission to Earth was cut mid-sentence. Her final word, spoken clearly into the recorder she had hidden in her clothing, was simple. "Remember." They executed her publicly, in the great plaza of the Throne of Stars, as a message to any species that might challenge the Council's power. They thought it was an ending. They were wrong. The transmission reached Earth at 3:47 in the morning, Greenwich Mean Time. It was received by a young communications officer named David, who was drinking his third cup of coffee and fighting to stay awake during his night shift. When he heard Ambassador's voice, when he heard her final word, and then the sudden cut to static, the cup fell from his hands and shattered on the floor. Within an hour, every leader on Earth had been woken from their sleep. Within 3 hours, the full recording had been analyzed and confirmed. Within 6 hours, the United Nations Security Council had gathered in emergency session. The room was full of shouting. Some demanded immediate war. Others urged caution. A few, voices shaking, asked what humanity could possibly do against a civilization that spanned thousands of star systems. Then a woman stood up. She was the Secretary General of the United Nations, Maria Santos, a small woman with iron-gray hair and eyes that had seen too much suffering in her 60 years. She raised her hand, and slowly the room fell silent. "We have a choice to make," she said. "We can rage and shout and send our small fleet to die in a grand gesture, or we can be smarter." She looked around the room. "Ambassador was my friend. I picked her for this mission because she was the best of us, patient, kind, brave. They killed her like an animal in public as a message." Her voice did not shake, but tears ran freely down her face. "They want us to attack in anger. They want us to be the violent primitives they believe we are. They are waiting for us to give them an excuse to destroy us completely." She wiped her face and stood. "We will not give them that excuse. Not yet. We will be silent, we will watch, we will prepare. And when we are ready, we will show them what humanity is truly capable of." The room was quiet for a long moment. Then, one by one, the leaders nodded. The silence began. For 3 standard months, humanity went dark. Diplomatic channels were closed. No messages were sent to Council space. Human ships stopped traveling beyond their own territory. The 40-colony worlds sealed their borders. The Galactic Council watched and waited for a response that never came. High Arbiter received congratulations from his fellow council members. He had dealt with the human problem efficiently and cleanly. The young species had learned their place. Accepted the praise, but something bothered him. He had studied human history. When humans lost a battle, they did not stay quiet. They raged, they mourned, they swore revenge. This silence was wrong. He sent intelligence ships to spy on human space. They reported unusual activity in the outer colonies, increased traffic between human worlds, energy signatures that suggested industrial production on a massive scale. But the analysts dismissed these reports. What could the humans possibly be building? They had perhaps 200 warships, old designs that were barely a match for Council patrol vessels. Even if they doubled their fleet, they would still be nothing. The months passed, and the Council forgot about humanity. But on Earth, and on every human world, something was happening that the galaxy had never seen before. For all of human history, nations had competed against each other. Borders were fought over. Resources were hoarded. Old hatreds ran deep. The colonies had continued this tradition, forming their own governments, their own rivalries, their own small conflicts. Death changed everything. The video of her execution was broadcast across all human space. Every person on every world watched a woman die for the crime of asking for peace. They saw the alien who condemned her, the cold calculation in his eyes. They heard her final word, and they understood what it meant. Remember. Within a week, the old governments began to dissolve, not through violence but through choice. Leaders who had spent their careers fighting each other now sat in the same rooms, planning together. The United Nations was replaced by the United Terran Directorate, a single government for all of humanity. Every colony signed the charter. Every nation on Earth joined. For the first time in history, humanity spoke with one voice. The shipyards were the next to change. On Mars, on Europa, on a dozen colony worlds, facilities that had been building exploration vessels and cargo ships were retooled overnight. Workers who had been competing for contracts now shared designs freely. The best engineers from every world worked together. Admiral Cole, a veteran of the colony wars who had been preparing for retirement, was called back to service. They gave him a simple order: build a fleet capable of destroying the Dominion. He looked at the resources humanity had. He looked at the enemy they faced, and he smiled. "It won't be easy," he said. "It won't be fast, but we can do this." The shipyards worked around the clock. Humans who had never thought about war volunteered by the millions. Scientists who had been mapping distant stars now calculated weapons trajectories. Farmers and teachers and office workers trained for combat. Every human old enough to understand knew what they were preparing for. Many of them would die. They accepted this, because had been one of them, and humanity protected its own. The intelligence reports that reached became more concerning. Human industrial output had increased by 400%. Unusual energy signatures were detected in deep space. A few spies managed to get close to human shipyards and reported seeing vessels of a design never encountered before. Requested permission to launch a preemptive strike against human space. The Council, his request. The humans were insignificant. Whatever they were building could not possibly threaten the combined might of the Galactic Council. The Dominion's fleets were needed for more important matters. Obeyed, he was a soldier after all. He followed orders. But late at night, alone in his chambers, he watched final transmission again. He saw her face, calm and unafraid even as she faced death. He heard her voice, clear and steady. Remember. He did not understand humans. They were strange, emotional, unpredictable. But something in that final word, something in the look in her eyes, made him afraid in a way he could not explain. 3 months passed, then 4, then 5. The silence stretched on. And then at the edge of council space, a single human ship appeared. It was small, it was unarmed. It broadcast on all frequencies, asking to speak with the council. Ordered 300 warships to surround it. He was taking no chances. What he did not know, what no one in the galaxy could have predicted, was that the silence was over. And the storm was about to begin. The small human ship hung motionless in space, surrounded by death. 300 warships pointed their weapons at it, enough firepower to crack a moon in half. The ship made no move to escape. It simply waited. Inside the ship, Admiral Cole sat alone in the cockpit. He was 63 years old, with a face like weathered stone and eyes the color of a winter sky. His ancestors had fought in every major human war for 6 generations. His great-grandmother had died defending a city. His grandfather had lost both legs in a battle and had kept fighting from a wheelchair. His father had given his life saving civilians from a terrorist attack. War was in his blood, but unlike his ancestors, Cole had never wanted it. He had joined the military hopping to keep peace, to protect rather than destroy. He had retired thinking his fighting days were over. Had been his friend. He watched the ships on his sensors and felt nothing but cold calm. Fear had left him months ago. There was only purpose now. A communication channel opened. A commander's face appeared on his screen, four-armed and arrogant, looking at him like he was an insect. Human vessel, you have entered council space without authorization. Identify yourself and explain your presence, or you will be destroyed. Leaned forward. I am Admiral Cole of the United Terran Directorate. I carry a message for the Galactic Council from all of humanity. I request that you broadcast this message on all channels throughout Council space. The commander made a sound of contempt. You request. You are surrounded by our fleet. You are in no position to request anything. Then I demand, said, and his voice was quiet and hard. Because if you do not, what comes next will be on your head. Something in his tone made the commander hesitate. He consulted with someone off-screen, then turned back with a cruel smile. Very well, human. Speak. Let the entire galaxy hear the whimpering of your defeated species. Nodded slowly. He activated the broadcast system. He knew that his voice was now being transmitted across every frequency in council space, to every ship, every station, every world. Trillions of beings would hear what he was about to say. He took a breath and spoke. People of the Galactic Council, I am Admiral Cole speaking on behalf of the United Terran Directorate and every human being in existence. 5 months ago, you executed our ambassador, came to you in peace. She carried our hopes, our friendship, our dreams of joining the galactic community. She was patient with your insults. She was kind in the face of your cruelty. She asked only for a chance. His voice hardened. You killed her. You murdered an innocent woman in public as a message. You thought it would make us afraid. You thought it would make us submit. He paused. You were wrong. Across council space, beings stopped what they were doing to listen. In the council chamber itself, the 12 elder species watched in confusion. What was this human doing? What could he possibly hope to achieve? For 5 months we have been silent, continued. You mistook that silence for fear. You thought we had accepted our place, but we were not afraid, we were preparing. He reached for a control on his console. The United Terran Directorate has a message for the Galactic Council, for the Dominion, and for every species that stood by while our ambassador was murdered. He pressed the button. On every screen, every display, every neural interface across council space, a single word appeared in burning red letters. Annihilation. In the council chamber, High Arbiter leaped to his feet. Destroy that ship now. But Cole was not finished. You are wondering why I am here, alone, in an unarmed ship. You are wondering what a single human can do against your fleets. You still do not understand us. You still think we are weak." He smiled, and there was no warmth in it. "I am not here to threaten you. I am not here to negotiate. I am here to give you exactly 3 minutes to evacuate your border fleets to a safe distance." The commander laughed. "You are insane. Why would we do that?" "Because we are already here." At that moment, alarms began screaming across the fleet. Sensors detected massive energy signatures. FTL exit points were forming all around them, dozens of them, then hundreds. Ships began appearing. Human ships, but not like any the galaxy had seen before. They were angular and brutal, built for war rather than beauty. Their hulls were dark gray, marked with a simple symbol, Earth, seen from space with its name written beneath it. One ship appeared, then 10, then 100, then 1,000. They kept coming, wave after wave, dropping out of faster-than-light travel in perfect formation. The sensors could not count them fast enough. The final number was 12,000. 12,000 warships, built in secret across 40 worlds, crewed by volunteers who had trained for 5 months knowing they might not come home, armed with weapons designed by humanity's greatest engineers, fueled by a fury that burned cold and patient. The fleet was outnumbered 40-1. Cole's voice rang out one final time. "Asked for peace. You gave her death. Now you will learn what humanity does to those who harm our own." The commander's face had gone gray. "This is impossible. You cannot have built this. You are primitive. You are weak." "We were weak," agreed. 5 months ago. But you gave us a reason to become strong. You gave us something we never had before, unity. Every human in existence, working together for a single purpose." He gestured at the fleet surrounding the ships. "This is what we built while you were celebrating your victory. This is what you created when you killed our ambassador. We tried peace. You chose war." He leaned back in his chair. "You have 30 seconds to surrender." The commander cut the transmission. Orders flew across the fleet. Weapons charged. Ships moved into attack formation. They would not surrender. They had never surrendered in 100,000 years. 20 seconds passed. Then 10. Then the human fleet opened fire, and the first battle of the Human Council War began. The border fleet died in 14 minutes. And across the galaxy, every species realized the same terrifying truth. They had not been watching a child throwing a tantrum. They had awakened a sleeping giant. And it was very, very angry. The war should have been over in weeks. The Galactic Council commanded fleets that numbered in the hundreds of thousands. They had resources from 1,000 star systems. They had weapons refined over millions of years. They had experience, technology, and numbers beyond anything humanity could match. But they had never fought humans before. The first lesson came at the Battle of Sgate, 3 weeks into the war. An armada of 5,000 ships cornered a human fleet of 800 near a strategic jump point. The commander, a veteran of 100 campaigns, gave the humans one chance to surrender. The human commander, a woman named Captain Sarah, responded with a single transmission: "Come and take us." They attacked. Their ships were faster, their weapons more powerful, their shields stronger. They killed human ships by the dozens. But something strange happened. When a human ship was crippled, when its engines were dead and its weapons destroyed, it did not stop fighting. Instead, it aimed itself at the nearest enemy vessel and accelerated. They had no word for this. In their culture, soldiers fought to win, not to die. When a battle was lost, you retreated. You preserved your forces. You lived to fight another day. Humans did not think this way. Crippled human ships rammed cruisers. Damaged fighters flew straight into enemy bridges. Crews who knew they were dying made sure to take enemies with them. By the time the battle ended, the 800 human ships were gone, but so were 2,000 vessels. They had won, but for the first time in their history, they felt afraid. The weeks turned to months. The Council threw more resources at the war. New fleets were built. Alliance species sent their warships to join the fight. Surely, they told themselves, this could not continue. Humanity was small. They would run out of ships, run out of soldiers, run out of will. They were wrong on all three counts. Every human world was a factory now. Every person who could work did work. Children who should have been in school helped carry supplies. Elderly people who could barely walk monitored systems and trained younger workers. There was no rest. There was no stopping. The shipyards ran 24 hours a day. And the volunteers never stopped coming. Humans arrived at recruitment centers in numbers that shocked even the directorate's leaders. Young people who had never held a weapon, parents who wanted to protect their children, scientists who traded their research for rifles. When the recruitment officers asked why, the answer was always the same. Was one of us, they killed her for wanting peace. I will not let that stand. By the 6th month of the war, the Council's intelligence services finally understood what they were dealing with. A senior analyst presented a report to the remaining council members, his voice shaking. They are not fighting like a civilization, he said. They are fighting like a single organism. Every human on every world is part of the war effort. There is no division between military and civilian. There is no concept of acceptable losses. They view this war as personal. Every one of them. 8 billion on Earth, another 6 billion in the colonies, and every single one considers this their personal fight. A council member asked the obvious question, how do we defeat an enemy like that? The analyst was silent for a long moment. I do not know if we can. High Arbiter refused to accept this. He commanded the greatest military force in the galaxy. He would not be defeated by primitives. He gathered every ship the Dominion possessed and launched a massive assault on human space. For a brief moment, it seemed like he would succeed. His fleets pushed deep into human territory. Colony worlds fell. Millions of humans died. But they did not surrender. On the colony world of New Shanghai, a city of 2 million people held off a landing force for 3 weeks. The soldiers ran out of ammunition on the 5th day. They fought with knives, with rocks, with their bare hands. Old women threw boiling water from windows. Children led enemy patrols into ambushes. By the time the city finally fell, they had lost more soldiers than the entire population they were trying to conquer. The commander who led the assault was asked what happened. His answer was simple. They would not stop. We killed them and they kept fighting. We burned their homes and they fought from the ashes. I have conquered 100 worlds. I have never seen anything like this. His push into human space stalled. His supply lines stretched too thin. His soldiers were exhausted, traumatized by fighting an enemy that did not know how to give up. And then the human counterattack began. Admiral Cole, now commanding from the rebuilt flagship, led what remained of the human fleet in a straight line toward the... They did not try to capture territory. They did not try to hold strategic points. They had one goal, reach the heart of the Dominion and end the war. The final battle took place in orbit above Throne World. They gathered every remaining ship they had, 80,000 vessels, to defend their sacred planet. Against them came the human fleet, battered and from 11 months of constant warfare. Barely 4,000 ships remained. Cole opened a channel to his fleet. They outnumber us 20 to 1. Our ships are damaged. We are tired. We have lost friends, family, everything we loved. He paused. But we have something they do not. We have a promise to keep, asked us to remember. Today we show the galaxy what that means. The human fleet attacked. It was not a battle. It was a storm. Human ships hurled themselves at the lines with no concern for survival. Fighters flew suicide runs into enemy carriers. Destroyers rammed battleships. The led charge after charge, its hull torn open, its systems failing but still fighting. Cole stayed at his command post even when half his bridge crew was dead. When his ship was crippled, when there was no hope of survival, he aimed his vessel at the command station and gave one final order. Full speed ahead. His last transmission was the same as countless humans who had died in this war. Remember, struck the command station and detonated. The explosion was visible from the planet's surface. The command structure was gone, their fleet scattered in chaos. When the battle ended, barely 300 human ships remained, but they were broken. Their fleet was destroyed. Their leaders were dead. Humanity had paid a terrible price. Millions were gone. Most of the fleet was burning wreckage. Admiral Cole and so many others had given everything. But they had won. And across the galaxy the message was clear. You do not touch humanity's own, ever. The cost of that lesson was beyond calculation, but it would never be forgotten. The war ended not with a bang, but with a signature. 3 days after the final battle, the surviving leaders of the Dominion sent a message to the United Terran Directorate. They were ready to discuss terms. They expected demands for territory, for resources, for the complete submission of their species. They had seen how humans fought. Surely a people so fierce would want blood. They were wrong. The human delegation arrived at the Throne of Stars in a small diplomatic vessel. It was not a warship. It carried no weapons. It flew under a white flag, the ancient human symbol for peace. The leader of the delegation was a young woman named Maria. She was 30 years old, with dark hair like her mother and the same patient eyes. She had spent the war years working in the shipyards, building the vessels that would avenge her mother's death. She had volunteered to fight, but the directorate had refused. His daughter was too important as a symbol to risk in battle. Now she would finish what her mother had started. The council chamber was quieter than it had been 11 months ago. 2 of the 12 elder species had withdrawn from the council entirely, wanting no part of what was to come. Several of the floating platforms were empty. The representative was not High Arbiter. He had survived the battle somehow, but he was not here. That would come later. Maria stood on the same platform where her mother had been condemned to death. She looked up at the beings who had allowed that to happen, and she felt the weight of everything that had followed. Millions dead, worlds destroyed, a generation by war. She took a breath and spoke. I am Maria, representing the United Terran Directorate. I am the daughter of Ambassador whom you murdered in this very chamber. Her voice was calm, steady. I am here to discuss the end of this war. The eldest, a being called Ra who had lived for over 1,000,000 years, leaned forward. Its form was like liquid shadow, constantly shifting. And what do your people want? What will satisfy humanity's thirst for revenge? Maria was quiet for a moment. She had prepared for this question. She had thought about it during the long journey here. You misunderstand us, she said. We did not fight this war for revenge. We fought because you gave us no choice. You killed a woman who came to you with open hands and you expected us to accept it. We could not. We are human. We protect our own. She reached into her case and pulled out a document. It was the same petition her mother had carried, now worn and stained but still readable. This is what my mother wanted. This is what we still want. Membership in the Galactic Council, a seat at the table, a chance to be part of the galactic community. The chamber was silent. They stared at her in confusion. You have crushed the Dominion, Ra said slowly. You have proven yourself to be the greatest military power this galaxy has seen in 100,000 years. And you want membership. We want peace, Maria said. We always wanted peace. My mother died trying to achieve it. Admiral Cole died trying to achieve it. Millions of our people died. We do not want your worlds. We do not want your resources. We do not want to rule the galaxy. We only want what we asked for from the beginning, respect, equality, a chance to grow alongside you. She held up the petition. This is our demand. Accept us as equals. That is all. They looked at each other. In 1,000,000 years of galactic history, this had never happened. A species that could have demanded anything, that could have claimed an empire, that could have crushed its enemies completely. was asking only for what it had asked for before the war. Ra spoke again, and there was something in its voice that might have been wonder. If you wanted peace, why did you do this? Why the war, the destruction, the billions dead on both sides? Surely there was another way. Maria looked at the being who asked the question, and her eyes were hard. There was no other way. We tried peace first. We sent our best diplomat, our kindest soul, with nothing but hope and friendship. You killed her and called it justice. You thought we were weak because we wanted peace. You thought our kindness was a flaw. She gestured at the empty platforms, at the diminished council. Now you know the truth. We are not weak. We are not kind because we cannot be cruel. We choose peace because we understand what the alternative costs. We have fought each other for all of our history. We know war better than any species in this galaxy. We hate it. We want it to end. But we will not let that desire for peace make us victims. She placed the petition on the platform. My mother asked you for membership. You answered her with death. I am asking again. But this time you know what we are capable of. This time you understand the choice you are making. The vote was unanimous. Humanity was accepted into the Galactic Council. But there was one more piece of business. Was brought before a human court 3 months later. He had been hiding on a remote moon, protected by loyalists, but the Human Intelligence Service had found him. He was old now, broken by his defeat, but his eyes still held the same cold calculation that Maria had seen in recordings of her mother's trial. The trial lasted 3 weeks. Evidence was presented. Witnesses. Was given lawyers, given a chance to defend himself, given every right that he had. He was found guilty of murder. The humans who had gathered outside the courthouse called for his death. They had lost children, parents, friends in the war he had caused. They wanted blood. But the sentence was not death. Maria herself delivered the judgment. You took my mother from me. You started a war that killed millions. Death would be too easy for you. Instead, you will live. You will watch your people rebuild under human guidance. You will see the peace you tried to prevent flourish. You will grow old knowing that everything you did was for nothing. She looked at him one final time. Remember. The word echoed in the chamber, the same word that had driven a species to war, that had fueled a fury burning across the stars. Was taken away. He lived for another 60 years, watching as humans and learned to work together as the scars of war slowly healed. He died alone and forgotten, a relic of a time when the galaxy had made the mistake of thinking humanity was weak. In the centuries that followed, humanity took its place among the stars. They did not try to conquer. They did not try to dominate. They built, they explored, they learned, they taught. They became known as the species that wanted peace more than anything but would fight harder than anyone when their own were threatened. A new proverb spread among the 1,000 species of the galaxy. Parents told it to their children. Leaders whispered it in council chambers. It was taught in schools and repeated in temples. Do not touch the humans. Do not test the humans. For their memory is long, their fury is patient, and their love for their own knows no limits. Statue stood in the central plaza of the Throne of Stars, where she had been executed. Her face was calm, her hands open in welcome. At the base of the statue, in every language known to the galaxy, was carved a single word. Remember. And the galaxy never forgot.